Hi, I'm Craig and welcome to Market Power. You probably have already heard about what happened at the Morehouse Commencement this weekend. It just happened yesterday, May 19th, and Robert Smith, a billionaire, comes to Morehouse and at commencement announces that he's going to pay off student debts for the 400 graduates at that commencement. And of course, this is a huge windfall. People are just stoked. This is exciting. Millions and millions of dollars coming into these students who I imagine are incredibly deserving of this opportunity. I want to go in and talk about what some of the economic effects are. Like, how is this going to affect our economy? How is this going to affect these students? And is this telling us what we need to know about what's going to happen if we have free college or forgiving student loans? Because that's what a lot of people are interested in right now. There have been articles and tweets about this Morehouse Commencement being a natural experiment in what happens when we forgive student loans. So the natural experiment is going to tell us hopefully something about economic growth. There are two things to consider in this. First, the distribution of income, and second, the size of the economy. These are two things that are going to be changing as a result of what this billionaire has done, at least on a very small scale, but we need to keep in mind what the large scale implications of those are, the distribution of income and the size of the economy. And I'm going to try and present this to you in a way that is pretty easy to understand. I thought a fun way to explain this would be to use these Lego bricks, and this will give you an idea of what's going on with the student loan situation and what happens when we have forgiveness. Money in this Lego brick world is going to be represented by these little brown bricks that are together. They're from an old fort kit that we had around, and there were enough of these to create a consistent money. So we're going to have this as our money. And the economy, the value of the economy is going to be represented by how much of this stuff is around here. Okay, so over here we have our billionaire who has lots and lots of money. And then over here we have a bank who has a little bit of money, and that's available to lend out. And then right here we have our student, and our student just has no money. Okay, and that's unfortunate for our student, but the student sees this really good opportunity. There is a job. Okay, this is a nice, well-paying job. It's mechanical in this world. That's why I thought this was a good representation of maybe what a high-paying job in this world would look like. It's a piece from a Millennium Falcon kit. Not like a really nice Millennium Falcon kit, but like something 10 years old at least. This student knows that this job is going to be high paying and grow our economy. But to get that, the student has to go through this little door right here. This is going to be getting a degree. And getting a degree costs tuition. We'll say that it costs 4 of these, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. That is what our tuition is. So he does not have that tuition on him right now. Where is he going to get it? Well, he can come over to the banker and say, hey, I would like a loan to go to school. And don't worry, once I go through school, on the other end is this really high paying job that's going to allow me to pay you back. I'm not just trying to get this money and run off with it. I have a job that will allow me to pay you back. And this lender, if they're responsible, will say, yes, only if that job is enough to cover the loan that they are giving them. So the banker gives the student the loan. The student comes over to the college, pays the tuition. Okay, so we'll have the tuition, how much the student paid, right up here on top. And then the student goes through, graduates, and hey, gets a really nice job. This is fantastic, right? This is great. This is what the student wanted. In return, the student, because they have this nice job, is contributing to the economy, contributing to economic growth. And so then the economy grows, the student is making a salary. Now the student has a debt that he owes to this banker. And so some of that salary is going to go back to the banker. What has happened to our economy under this situation? Well, the billionaire has done nothing in this case, right? So nothing has changed in the billionaire's wealth. The bank now has back the money that they had, so this is fine. That's in the same spot. But we have these other things. So some money went to the school. That was the loan that the banker gave, and that went as tuition. And then the student over here contributed to economic growth, and so this has increased the pie. It increased the pie in two ways. One of those ways went back to go and pay off the banker. But in terms of how much has our economy grown, it's grown by these two bricks right here, the student being able to keep one of those. So that's what happens in a normal situation where the billionaire just sits on the side and doesn't do anything. Let's go back to this world before any decisions have been made. The student still wants to go get this high-paying job, comes back, talks to the banker, says, please give me a loan, gets the loan, pays it to the college, goes through college, let's make sure he actually goes through it, and now he's graduated, has his job, and the economy grows as a result. So this is on the day of graduation. This is the salary that they've been promised because this is going to be the economic growth they create. Student is happy, and then all of a sudden, the billionaire shows up at school and gives a commencement speech where the billionaire says, I will pay off your student loans, right? And so the billionaire comes up to their wealth, breaks off that piece, and gives it back to the bank. What has happened to our economy as a result of the billionaire's actions? The size of the economy has stayed the same. Remember, the size of the economy is represented by the brown bricks, and there are the same number of brown bricks in this scenario as there were in the previous scenario when the billionaire did nothing. What has changed is who has the bricks. The banker has the same number of bricks as they had before. The billionaire now has fewer bricks, and the student, now graduate, has more bricks. This billionaire has now transferred some of his wealth to this student. And that's a fine outcome, right? So it's important for us to understand the distinction between the size of the economy and the distribution of income or the distribution of wealth. They are two different things. What happens to the economy now that the distribution of income has changed? Well, it depends on what this student is now going to do with this extra money. Now that the student has no debt, he is free to go and invest this extra income in other activities. Maybe he'll buy a house or a more expensive house, something that he can spend more of his income on. Maybe he'll start a new business, and because he's got more income, he can more easily put up the collateral he needs, or doesn't have to borrow as much to start a new business. So there are ways that the student might change his decisions to then increase economic growth. Now, here is a sad reality of it. What if this student doesn't make good economic decisions, right? What if this student decides to waste that money? If that student doesn't invest this income in a way that contributes to economic growth, but this billionaire, if he had it, he has lots of investment opportunities. Let's say he is investing in students in some cases, or in other cases, he's investing in important businesses. This particular billionaire happens to contribute to art and museums. If that is a better investment, this action could actually reduce economic growth. The one thing we're guaranteed is that this is going to change the distribution of income. The thing we're not guaranteed is that it will actually create economic growth, and that's a sad reality for some people. One thing economists like to talk about when they see things like this is to ask, how efficient is this really? So this student went in and took on that debt because they knew that there was a job on the other end that they wanted. They were interested in this, and students acting what economists would say rationally would weigh the costs and benefits and say, will I make enough money on the other end of here to justify this loan? Well, what happens when you have a student who went over here and saw this college opportunity and didn't see this job over here, but instead said, I don't think that job is worth going to college. I think there's another career where I can make a good income and not have to go into debt to do that. That student will come over here and do some other type of job while this student goes, gets the debt, and contributes to this job. Well, what happens in this case, right? So this student now has a whole bunch of money available to them, and this student over here has this income, right? So beforehand, this student had to pay the debts, and they were making the same amount of money because of the student loan taking away some of this income. Well, now this student because of this windfall, this billionaire stepping in, now has twice as much money as this student. If this student knew that those loans would have been paid off, then they would have made a different decision. You might say, like, this is something we aspire for all students. We don't want to have any student to come up to here and say, I can't afford to do that, so I am going to come over here and take this other job. This is a student that's thinking through this responsibly. The student is looking through and saying, can I pay back a loan if I go through school and get that job? I don't think it's worth it. Maybe I can't pay it back, or maybe I have a job over here that gives me this income, a good enough income of what I would have made with paying back loans, except I don't have to go through the 4 years of school. So now this student, because they were acting responsibly, doesn't get that extra income. Now, this student could be acting responsibly. I'm not saying all of these students are irresponsible, but if you think that students come up to this door and don't think rationally, they don't measure out the costs and benefits, and they irrationally go and take out a loan to finance that education, then what you're saying is the responsible students who understand that they shouldn't do that are now being punished for being responsible, and the irrational students, the irresponsible ones, they now get rewarded for their bad choice. And this is, when we talk about this fairness, when we say, well, now it's more fair that the billionaire has less money and this student gets more, like, we have to remember this student over here. We have to remember that this student didn't get any money. So this is just in this world where all of a sudden we're forgiving loans. And this is really one of the big weaknesses or concerns about these proposals of just going through and forgiving people's student loans. Because what we're rewarding are the people that went through and made the choices, whether responsibly or irresponsibly, and we're punishing those students who made responsible choices and didn't go through and get all of that debt. The last thing I'd like to note is at the beginning I mentioned that people are looking at this as a natural experiment in what happens when you forgive student debt. And it's not quite the natural experiment that we should be thinking of going forward, because again, there's that student that's on the outside that made that choice not to go to college. Once we have something like free college for everybody, that's going to bring in a lot of people into the situation, and that could really change a lot of what we find out happens as a result. If it's just these responsible people who would go in and get a good job and contribute a lot to economic growth after making that 4-year investment, then this is going to be a fantastic opportunity possibly, and we could have a much better economy as a result. But if what this does is bring in people who are going to make this 4-year investment, 4 years outside of the labor market where they could be investing in their skills in another way, if we distort their investment and give them degrees in something like economics, maybe that's not the best choice for them. But because of these kind of things that we're changing, they go ahead and make that choice. Maybe that's not going to be the best opportunity for us. Thanks for watching Market Power today. Please subscribe so that way you can stay updated on more videos on the power of markets and economics to shape our world. And when you subscribe, you help me pay off my student debt.